Africa's position really has been about financing from COP1 to up to COP29.
It has been the same song.
Yeah,
yes.
It has been the same song, but I'm just going to show you how this one is different.
Okay.
So you see, the problem is Africans are not the largest emitters. But because we share the same environment, we are suffering from the effects. Let me break it down for a local person out there. If there is an industry in the USA emitting a lot of emissions, those emissions have an impact on Kenya, on Uganda. But you see, you're not responsible for that. So because you're not responsible for that, the person emitting must compensate you for the effects that you're facing.
This is the Policy Digest, a Center for Policy Analysis podcast that explores how African societies are governed and how people and their leaders are shaping the future of their communities. Through candid conversations and insightful analysis, we aim to provide a deeper understanding of the political, economic, and social landscape of Africa. So sit back, relax, and get ready to explore the diverse and dynamic world of African governance.
Hello, you're most welcome to the Policy Digest. This is a space where we host African leaders who are shaping the future of their communities. Now, as you could well be knowing, every year there's a conference of parties that happens that is convened by the UNFCCC that seeks to drive the global agenda on climate. And in this very specific podcast, we shall be looking at what Africa is pushing for as a bloc at that conference of parties that is currently happening in Azerbaijan, that is in the city of Baku. And in so doing, we are joined by a Youth Climate Negotiator that is part of A Better Life International, who is none other than Ian Agaba. Ian, you're most welcome to this podcast.
Thank you so much, my senior brother Tahinduka, and I am so glad that you have hosted me. For those that are seeing me for the first time, my name is Ian Agaba. I'm a climate change activist, and I have an organization called A Better Life International organization. I'm a co-founder to that organization, and it basically focuses on how best can we help refugees, how best can we help people that are being affected by climate change impacts. But the most important idea is how best can we create a better life of both the people, but also a better life of the environment.
And I think that's very vital. And I think A Better Life has been part of a lot of climate negotiations. I think you were part of COP27, COP26, and quite a lot of international events, even pre-COP activities. And perhaps I wanted to start on that very idea, which is that what prompted us to start A Better Life? What was the trigger?
So I am a co-founder of A Better Life International organization, and this organization focuses on 3 key issues. 1, you understand that climate refugees are not legally recognized as refugees. Yet, in the IOM report last year, they showed that the reason as to why very many people migrated was because of climate change. So the question then is, why isn't it legally recognized for one to be a climate refugee or to be a refugee? The other day when you saw in Sudan, people move from one place to another because of drought, it was because of climate change. But when you go to Kenya, you're not going to be legally recognized as a refugee. That was the fundamental reason, the first primary reason as to why we formed A Better Life International organization. The second one was, how best can we create a sustainable way of life in this environment that is being destroyed? Yes, TJ, you have land, you have built your good house, you have a farm. I know you're passionate about agriculture. By the end of the day, the floods take away everything. How best can we live in this environment? That was the second fundamental issue. Then the last one was the impact that we want to create, which is a better life. A better life for not only people, but a better life for also the environment. And here we are. A Better Life has been able to attend conferences from 2021, 2022 in Egypt, 2023 in Dubai, and now 2024 we are in Baku, Azerbaijan, trying to negotiate for a typical African. How best can this typical African that is being affected or that is being destroyed by climate change impacts, how can we help this young man? And of course, my passion is very simple. My passion is to see that every person gets their fundamental rights.
Oh, that's good, and it helps that the knowledge we learn does not stop in class, or does not stop at the attainment of the paper or the grade, the A, the B, or whatever. It goes up to actual solving an actual problem. Now, maybe for us to get to the crux of the conversation on Africa and position on COP. So from the days of the Kyoto Protocol to the Doha agreements to the very many protocols that have arisen out of that, the African position on COP has been one that has been telling the global north that, look here, you're responsible for most of the damage. How about you pay your due share of reparations? What is the specific position of the African negotiators at COP this year that is different from the one they have been having from the days of the Kyoto Protocol?
Yeah, thank you so much, TJ, for such a wonderful question. And I would like to educate people out there that haven't understood well what COP is, then go to our position as Africans.
Absolutely.
So COP is the conference of parties. Countries realized that there was a problem in as far as climate change is concerned. So they said under UNFCCC, why don't we come together, have yearly summits, sit down, have these conferences and discuss about the way forward on how best we can protect the environment. And of course, we saw the first one in 1995. And up to now, we are now in Baku. So the Africa's position really has been about financing from COP 1 to up to COP29.
Yeah, it has been the same song.
Yeah,
yes.
It has been the same song, but I'm just going to show you how this one is different.
Okay.
So you see, the problem is Africans are not the largest emitters. But because we share the same environment, we are suffering from the effects. Let me break it down for a local person out there. If there is an industry in the USA emitting a lot of emissions, those emissions have an impact on Kenya, on Uganda. But you see, you're not responsible for that. So because you're not responsible for that, the person emitting must compensate you for the effects that you're facing. And that is what has been the call on every COP. But here has been the problem. Every time we go for these conferences, developed nations pledge to help developing nations. But what happens?
Wedding pledges. I'm going to pledge
exactly
10,000 to your program.
Exactly. They tell you we are giving you this money, but they don't give you the money. 2, even when they give you the money, they want to give it to you as a loan. 3, the money is not enough because
it's not proportional to the damage they've created.
And that is what I wanted to say. There is no direct proportionality of the money to the effect. So what is Africa's position then? One, Africa as a nation has been receiving 100 billion US dollars from the developed nations because they are the emitters.
Oh, yeah,
This year, Africa is saying, no, we don't want 100 billion, but we want 130 trillion US dollars. Because one, the effect is not direct proportional to the money that you have been giving us. Two, Africa is saying, you have been promising us a lot of money. Just last year I was in Kenya for the Africa Climate Summit.
Oh, yeah.
You remember, if you heard what President Ruto said, it was a wonderful speech. He was talking about problems that Africans face. And the developed nations were like, okay, we understand the issue, so we are going to help. They didn't help. Up to now, the money has not been received.
The money, there's normally every COP, there's this whole placard they put. We have raised this much for the is it called the Loss and Damage
Loss
Fund?
and Damage Fund.
Do they normally pay that money? Or
usually it is paid, but after a long period of time, or sometimes it doesn't come. So Africa is saying, first things first, the money that you pledged, pay us. We work on the local person that is being affected by climate change. For example,
absolutely.
You saw earlier this year what happened to the people of Kasese. River Nyamwamba flooded and very many people lost their lives.
Yeah,
very many people started moving from one place to another. Sudan, you saw what drought did to them. Young kids in schools had to go home for 3 months just because the sun was too much they could not even get a droplet of water.
Or even Somalia, there's a lot of drought, I'm told.
Thank you.
Their livestock has the livestock numbers have depleted. Development programs don't have enough resources to resuscitate biodiversity that sustains a livestock ecosystem or infrastructure.
So to sum it up, when people like those are being faced by the effects and you're promising me money to liberate my people, but the money is not coming, I think we have to say enough is enough. So that is what Africa is saying. But of course, lastly, remember that this is a finance COP.
Oh, yes.
It is a finance COP, which simply means that it is at this year that they are going to see how much money should be distributed in the Loss and Damage Fund, in the Adaptability and Resilience Fund.
Like setting quotas?
Yeah, setting quotas for various departments, because we have various departments in climate change and how best we can help.
If you may just indulge me. So, like Uganda had a democratic governance facility, or like the World Bank, which has like a board of directors from like the nominated countries and the broader, of course, directors. There's so many, like each country has a director at the IMF who either visits or is resident there. So these very funds, right? These green funds that are available, where are they resident? Yeah, do they have a manager? How do they make the determination that Uganda maybe needs 100 billion to meet their NCDs? And how do they know that that country needs more? So what's the management structure?
So that's the whole idea of African negotiators.
Oh, yeah.
So one, COP has a president. You know that.
Okay.
Every year they sit down and vote for a particular president. So, for example, in Uganda, I could give you one of my mentors, Ambassador Donia Ayebari, who has mentored me to be a very good young African climate negotiator. He's heading G77.
Yeah, plus China, yes.
Yeah, so African negotiators, every country sends particular people to talk to the president COP, but also parties or states in that conference about the problems that are being faced in their individual countries. So your problems or effects that have been generated as far as climate change is concerned amount then to the money that is going to be given to you. That is why last year, I can repeat, we were able to have the first ever African climate summit. It had never happened in Africa. That was after having COP27 in Egypt.
So one of its outputs were the
Can we
SCSC,
now have other summits, not necessarily about all parties, but about African states, for them to come to realize how much is needed to solve the problem? So if I can break it down.
I get you. I have two follow-up questions. The first question is on the analysis which normally is common in climate change circles, which is that we emit less, but then we get most of the consequences. Why? Why is it that we emit less, but then we get most consequences? Why is it that those who emit most don't get the consequences?
I think, my senior TJ, to answer your question, I think we need to go back to the principles: climate justice, development. One is that in the USA, if, for example, they are emitting a lot, they also have climate resilience strategies. You have heard of the company of Elon Musk, Tesla, that no longer uses fuel.
Carbon fuels.
That no longer uses carbon fuels, that they now rely on solar. That is a resilience strategy. But how many Ugandans can afford that? How many Kenyans can afford that? If you cannot afford to have a meal a day.
And you dream about having a Tesla.
Exactly. So that's the whole idea. That yes, they emit a lot, but we face a lot of effects because of underdevelopment. We are not yet developed to the extent of having resilience strategies, but two, because these guys have to also send their products to our countries. If there are plastic bottles, how many plastic bottles are in Uganda? But because of their development, even when you don't want to use the plastic bottles, there are conditions attached that yes, if you accept our company to be in your country, we are giving you this amount. You find that yes, you don't want the company, but you want the money to help your people.
So you end up liberalizing the economy.
You end up bringing them in. So to just answer the question, the fact is African nations are underdeveloped, and hence they don't have ways in which they can solve the effects. Yet they are not emitting a lot.
And that's good. The second question is on the whole idea of proportionality. So you said they were giving us $100 billion every year, and now we are advocating for 130 trillion. 130 trillion, right? 1.3, 130.
1.3.
1.3 trillion US dollars.
Yeah.
So the question is that what's our contribution here? Because I read through the National Climate Finance Strategy, and it speaks to foreign donors coming in and covering quite. I think that was about 70% of the money needed for us to meet our NCDs by the 2030 deadline for the SDGs. Where's our part as African nations? Because it looks like we are saying, you guys are the problems, you guys are the problems. Don't we have a problem ourselves that we need to fix?
So, and this is a funny question. I will show you why. One, our part is that we are working on the problems they caused us. Killing.
My question is, we have no part in these problems at all.
Yeah, and I'm coming to it. That is the first part. So if you're causing problems, I shouldn't have a part to say that you shouldn't have done this. My part should be under the polluter pay principle. Simple. Pay for the things that you have done to me. I work on myself. But two, the part that Africans have then is that we need to understand, TJ, that African countries have a lot of challenges, ranging from poverty, ranging from corruption, challenges that not necessarily come up as because of climate change effects or climate change as a concept. So the part that is needed for not only African negotiators but also Africans is to use this money to address the challenges. And that is
At the moment, it is not.
that is the challenge that we have been facing. That yes, every year an African country receives money and you don't know where the money goes. People in Kasese are not yet compensated. People in Bududa, you saw them in the court the other day, I think it was in March, saying that they promised them compensation and they have never gotten it. And these are people that have been having
promised compensation.
Leave alone the promise. I have been having my house in Ntinda or in Mbara or in Rukunjiri for more than 50 years. My great-grandfathers have been sleeping there. And
it's now washed away by...
And it has been washed away by, let's say, floods or what. And the government tells me, oh, we have a compensation plan. We are going to take you somewhere where you can feel safe. That would be good, yes, because leave alone other things.
Because normally, I think this was... I was listening to a show. Now, there's a bit of a landslide problem in Elgon, along the slopes of Mountain Elgon.
Yeah.
And the idea of the Prime Minister was to relocate people temporarily to IDPs.
True.
Yeah, and I am told that most people, when they go to IDP, either Chiriandongo, they come back. They would rather stay in danger than stay in an IDP. It looks like government is not coming through on their promise.
Yeah, and that is the part. Precisely, it answers your question. Yes, as Europeans, you have said that we did A, B, and C. Now we have done our part. Do your part. Help the local person. Compensate them. Make them to have a good life. Because that is what they wanted from day one. And that is what a Better Life International Organization focuses on. A better life for every person, no matter the capacity, no matter the qualification. Let them enjoy their rights just because they are living. These rights are given to you at the time of birth. Non-negotiable rights.
God-given rights, yeah.
God-given rights.
To life,
so
property,
the part of Africans
liberty
is simple. African governments make sure you close the deal. Help the people. But don't be given money and you swindle it. I could give you another example before maybe another question. You heard of CHOGM. This is not related to climate change.
Oh, yeah.
But where did that money go?
It's CHOGM, I guess.
Exactly. So the idea is very simple. The part of African states and African leaders is to make sure they work on their people if they are given this money.
Maybe just to still follow up on the same. So when official development assistance started facing challenges of endemic systemic corruption in Africa, the infrastructure of aid started changing the way it is administered. Either the multilateral donor comes themselves through institutions like you said, and they are doing actual work on the ground, or they work through more efficient government bureaucracies. So at the moment, climate finance, where is it going? Is it going as direct budget support to governments? Is it going to the non-profit? Is it going to the grassroots, like direct cash assistance? How is the current infrastructure going? Because you say it is quite inefficient. The money is not going to the grassroots.
So I'll answer it on 3 layers. One, I think money goes to the government. There is money that directly goes to the government, to particular ministries, for example, the Ministry of Disaster and Preparedness, to work on these effects like floods, like drought. 2, the money goes to organizations like a Better Life International Organization. You have heard of the organization of Vanessa Nakate, Rise Up Movement. there are very many organizations. There is Green What? There is a green organization in Uganda. There is Gaio Green Africa Youth Organization. There is a lot of Youth Hub International, a lot of organizations. So when the parties, so there we call them parties, not states. When the parties realized that giving 100% the money to governments would not be maybe 70% effective, they said, or they decided to, yes, give the money to governments, but also give some money to organizations that are doing practical work on the ground. And also, 3, we have various international organizations here. IOM is here in Uganda. Actually, Council Sarah, the current ambassador of IOM, the country delegate from Netherlands, is my good friend. I think she was appointed earlier this year. IOM goes on ground, goes in various refugee camps and talks to those people that are being affected by climate change but don't have the power to do anything, because
to immigrate or immigrate.
When you're in a refugee camp, you only depend on government food. And now a certain flood or what comes, even the food that you wanted is, yes, it is coming, but you even don't have where to stay. So now IOM looks at addressing those challenges. So yes, the money is given to the government, the money goes to various organizations. 3, the money is given to international organizations that are here, not only working in Uganda, but also other nations that look at helping the local person or helping people that are being affected by climate change. But most importantly, TJ, what we don't need to forget is climate change is not entirely about helping someone after effects. We also have adaptation and resilience mechanisms. So there is also money that is put there. That is why you can ask yourself, why does Ian move from one school to another to carry out climate education? Why did we start up a project of climate libraries in schools? That is a resilience mechanism and adaptation mechanism. Teach that particular person that, you see, the rain that you pray for, it is not God that says that rain come this day and don't come tomorrow. It's because of human activities. We still have societies down there, deep down. I come from Rukunjiri.
Who, when they want rain, they pray to God.
That rain is given by God. So when you tell them that it's because you're cutting down trees, be like, logically.
So whenever rain doesn't come, they say God
they
has
start
cursed
fasting.
them, right?
Yeah. They start fasting for rain. And when you tell them that it's because of their human activity, they can't understand.
They're like, look at this, young man who is going to school. They don't know what they're talking
so
about.
In as much as we are advocating for the already effects affected, we're also advocating for how best can we educate that local person to understand what climate change is all about.
Yeah, and I wanted us for you to walk us into that room. Let's say how negotiations happen. So let's say you're at COP, either Dubai or Baku, wherever it's going next. How do those negotiations happen, and how do you arrive at a deal? What's the entire process of negotiation, and how is a deal obtained? And then the follow-up will be about then how that deal is guaranteed.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. You see, if you had Ambassador Donia Evari's speech, just even his interview last night on NBS, he was talking about the first week of COP, saying that it was just about people are still at ease. The second week is always the most interesting week.
Tell us, how's the first week?
So
what happens in the first week?
The first week, we welcome people from various countries. They come, and maybe before that, we have 2 particular accreditations. One, you can get a party badge or a party accreditation. Party accreditation is usually given to ministers, MPs, or those young, vibrant leaders or young people that are into climate change. So simply those people that hold the power to influence a particular decision in a particular country. So that is like first class if we are talking about hotels. Those are where negotiations are. Two, we have observer badges. You have a say, yes, but your say is not implemented. Doesn't come as a vote.
Your say is nice.
Yeah, your say is nice.
Nice.
So if you want
It's
your say to be
as good as a tweet on Twitter, which you rank yourself.
so yeah, if you want your say to be implemented, you have to pass through the representatives of the nation or those that can access the first.
Like how many are the first parties? That first party block. How many are they? Like by estimate, of course.
Let's just talk about last year. Uganda had sent, was it 137?
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it had sent 137 party
Quite
badges.
a number.
Yeah. This year I have a party badge.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'll be accessing that room of ministers. Yeah, so that is the first thing. Two, there are meetings. How you see parliamentary sessions.
You are on the second party.
Yeah, the observer party, as I said,
those
the observer accreditation. Yours is to talk about the problems that are being affected by you. Make noise, yes. And if that noise is bought by the people in the first class, they then think, they now talk about it. But if it is not talked about, usually you just attend the conference, get the experience, and come back.
Take pictures.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to that average person, it's like attending a parliamentary session where you have maybe you want to pass a bill and they form like a committee, and the committee goes to discuss things that should be incorporated in a bill. So TJ has his time to talk about why we should have a computer misuse bill before it is an act. Ian comes, talks about why they should put a particular section in the bill, and that is the discussion. Everyone is given a chance to talk about their individual or country problems. When they talk about their country problems, they talk about the solutions that they think should be done. 3, they now give recommendations, but most importantly, you answer the question, why are you here?
As a country or
as a country,
as a
what
party,
do you need? What do you need? So that is why, if you have read about this COP, you realize that a lot of states did not go to Azerbaijan. One, because Azerbaijan is among the fossil fuel emitters, top leading countries that side. So states were saying,
what's the point?
What's the point? 2, there is a war just near Azerbaijan.
The Ukrainian war?
Yeah, there is a war.
They share a border.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. 3, you're saying that you're preaching climate resilience, adaptation, and how we shouldn't do A, B, C, D. But you're not doing it. We are in a nation championing something that it doesn't do. What message are you sending to other states that you can emit and host an international climate summit?
And sound nice.
Yes.
I saw the president of...
You saw
he
was cussing. He said, okay, remain there. and
he was quite angry.
And that's the point. 2017, you saw countries crying when Donald Trump said USA is not going to be part of COP because they are not benefiting anything. This year, he again said that. So the idea is very simple. COP is important, COP is good, but if in those negotiation rooms you don't come to a consensus, it is useless.
Fine. So And I think that's good, right? So there's like the first party, the people who have the power, those that are going to be negotiating within themselves. So how do they arrive at a deal? Or how do they at least talk to the extent that they don't even reach a consensus? Walk us through what happens in those negotiations.
So, for viewers out there, I want them to understand that this is not like a speech that you come and give a speech and go.
And people clap and then you
Yeah.
go, yeah.
A lot of paperwork is needed, even before the conference. And you submit your paperwork, they understand the country's position before. So when you come, you're talking about things that they know, and it is a discussion. And this is not like politics where I have to convince you for you to buy into my idea. These are realities of life. I tell you, people in Kasese
Are dying.
are dying. Actually are dead because of the flooding of River Nyamwamba. People in Kanungu are dying because of Enengo. I don't know if you have ever used that road. When you look down like
I know
this,
the
you
road.
can't
There's
you,
a time
you
where
can't look back.
No, there's a time, I think it was my senior six. So the bus, we were going to Windy. You know, there's a Windy, which is...
Yeah,
When we reached there, all of us went out and told our bus driver, Juma, you're on your own, man. You're on your own. We had to walk, you know.
when you see that road and people are using that road every day, yet they know that 98% when you use that road, you might die. These are realities
Chances are
of
very
life.
high, yeah.
You get? So it is up to the negotiators to present the realities of life of their people. And because the idea or the primary objective of the formation of Conference of Parties was about working together, not to see these effects, of course, expanding. That primarily means that you're working with people who already understand what it means to have these effects in your country, but also people like playing music for someone who is willing to dance.
And I think, Ian, I've gotten you, right? So, like, there's a lot of pitching on what's happening in your country with the idea that people will have an interest in solving it.
Yeah.
So how do you arrive at a deal of someone committing to say, we're going to give you that 100 billion? How do they arrive at the deal?
Simple things. And this goes back to the realities of life.
Of course.
TJ, when I am talking to you about my problem, you're best in position to understand it than if I was a politician asking for your vote. Simple thing. COP, the main objective as to why it was started, it was to help developing nations to adapt. So when we come and present something and give you the amount of money that we think
Is
would
needed
solve
to solve the
our
problem.
you resonate with us because you're putting yourself in our shoes. It's not that it is an organization that is not on climate change. This is the largest climate summit, climate conference.
On Earth, yeah.
You get? So it simply means that they are going to resonate with us easily. But
And
also
as a
maybe
result,
to
make commitments in that direction.
Yeah. But maybe to just talk about what is happening this year. Previously, African countries would present their paperwork as one nation. Find that this one says they need how much, they need this and this. But this year, African states were so wise. They said, let's come together.
As one block.
One.
Wow, that's a good innovation.
Yeah.
Let's negotiate as one block.
Then we divide amongst ourselves. And because the idea is very simple, when you front one voice, you're easily heard.
You're more heard than when you are separate. But I know also developed countries tend to push back sometimes. They're like, we don't buy your argument, right? How do you get to achieve a middle ground? I don't think you just tell them, here's a problem, guys. Like, then they're like, mama, let's solve it. I have a feeling there's some form of pushback sometimes, right?
Yeah. So the idea is very simple. Let me just give you an example of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
When he
2016.
pulled out. Usually when countries want to pull out, they don't attend the conference. It's like like they don't come. There is no incense because they don't want to agree with you. You get?
Also, they protest by not attending.
Yeah, so their position is always very clear. But their willingness to come for the conference shows that they want to do something about it.
Also, by their mere presence there, it shows a political will.
Maybe what brings that contrast and what is usually how much are you asking for? So
Yes,
they say they are willing to give you this.
For you're saying you want 1.3 trillion, they have 100 billion.
Exactly. So usually that's why a conference is for 14 days, not 2.
To ensure you go back and forth.
Yeah, finally you come up with what we call consensus or item in Latin, meeting of minds. Yeah.
You meet at a certain point where all of you have shared your positions and you find a middle ground. Yeah. So Ian, probably as we close, and I know, and I think this is something which I think that's Professor Rumba, what he said. It's like if you are there and you think you're going to solve all the problems you want to solve even in your lifetime, then you might be in an illusion. So I'm going to ask you to speak to climate activists, both those that exist, both those who might still be fighting for it, even in the future, because I think this is going to be an ongoing conversation. What message do you have for them as we close?
So I need to, and TJ, we have a problem in the space of climate change. Today I was in a conference and Professor Mumba said that liberators have now become entitled to the liberation. So later on, I had a discussion with Honorable Norbert Mao. I told him, what is your say on that? He also said that fighters have become
let me see, the paraphrase I would use is they have started to get the mindset that they are Jesus.
Exactly.
Who should
that
stay forever.
Without them in a struggle, the struggle is not there.
Beginning and the end, Alpha and Omega.
You have and you have seen you have seen these things.
Yeah.
So the first message I need to send to climate activists out there is that the struggle is not a one-man struggle.
It's not yours.
The struggle is not yours. We are struggling to create change on our environment. Teach every local person their effects or their part in fighting for climate change. That is the first message. You don't need to understand the science alone. If it was that, I wouldn't be here. Talk to people about what is happening. Let them also own the struggle. The second is, whoever thinks is not a climate activist, you are a climate activist. Because you're going to plant and you're not going to get the crops, or you're not going to harvest.
And all of a sudden you will be
and all of a sudden you will start looking on mechanisms like irrigation. Why? If you think you're not a climate activist, you will eventually become one, because we share the same space. It is not like saying that you're going to stay in a place that will never be affected by climate change.
Absolutely.
We stay in the same environment, so we need to own this struggle as all people, not Ian's struggle, not TJ's struggle, not what is Center for Policy Analysis struggle. You get? My message is very simple. Let us unite, use one voice, fight for our environment, because our environment is our jurisdiction.
Thank you, Ian Agaba, for making time to come to the Policy Digest. Your thoughts have been quite rich. And
thank you so much for inviting me. It is an honor to be invited in such a cool place. I don't hear any noise. You should think about having birds around.
To, what do I call it? To make it feel like it's climate friendly, right?
Yeah,
You have
you
a
need to
bird.
make it feel
By
like
the way, we have monkeys around sometimes.
Are you serious?
We're in heaven around.
Yeah.
This place is so green. It is so green. We're as green as we can get. But thank you, and my hope is that the negotiations that we're having, both with the global north, even within the global south, can give birth to a movement that can even carry on to the next generation. Because it's possible. It's possible that our home becomes one we defend with our sweat and blood. And
Yeah.
I think climate has become a threat that I think it has even more latent power to destroy our communities than the gun, than
So
even
what happened in
others.
Spain?
Wildfires everywhere.
Died, and
So many people.
they have every technology
You
they
see?
would think of.
And I think anything which has this much of a threat, we have to take it seriously. To you, the viewer of the Policy Digest, I hope that you learned quite a lot on what happens at COP and what is happening in the world of climate change activism. We hope you learned a lot. Follow Ian Agaba on all his social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, and other platforms. But also, do not forget that the Policy Digest documents stories of African leaders that are shaping the future of their communities. And go on YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, you'll find that work. But that's just not enough. The Center for Policy Analysis has a broad spectrum of offerings it has for you in case you want to monitor Parliament on a regular basis, what is happening in committees, what is happening in the main chambers, what is happening with ministerial statements, bills, reports. We have all that. Just go to our website. You see just a link in the left-hand corner, and you'll be abreast with all the information you need to be an active participant in your democracy. My name is Joseph the Henduka, the host of the Policy Digest. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Policy Digest, a Center for Policy Analysis podcast that explores how African societies are governed and how people and their leaders are shaping the future of their communities. For more podcasts, check out our Podbean and YouTube platforms. Thank you.